What is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the show. I am your host, Dave Hurt, and of course, this is Free Mind Podcast. So, I had a plan. I was going to talk about a few different things, but I just happened to come across this preposterous situation, and I had to talk about it. So, I'm going to cover that first, and then I'm going to go through a few other things. But on the docket tonight, outside of the thing that I'm about to cover, I was going to talk about Kamala and Charlemagne. Basically, Kamala looking like an absolute a buffoon, being interviewed by Charlemagne the God. Kim Foxx and Jussie Smollett. There's new information that's come out about Kim Foxx, who is the Cook County prosecutor in that whole Jussie Smollett whatever scenario. And then Louis C.K. We're going to talk about Louis C.K. because he is being attacked by the Me Too mob. He's being, assaulted online. I don't know. People are coming after him because he's released a new special, and apparently people think that you should be canceled forever. And so we're going to talk about that too. But first, I want to talk about Jesse Watters and Dr. Fauci and a speech that Jesse gave at Turning Point USA. So apparently, and I'll roll the clip. So for those of you listening on Spotify or wherever, I encourage you to check it out on YouTube. Go to YouTube. It's Free Mind with Dave Hurt so that you can see the video content. But apparently he was giving a talk, Jesse was, at this Turning Point USA event that's just happened. I think it's America Fest or Freedom Fest or something like that out in Arizona. And he's talking on stage to, all the people who are in attendance at this event. And he's talking about a journalistic strategy to question people who are potentially like ideologically opposed to you, who maybe you would see as a, quote, opponent, but it's a technique to kind of put them on the spot and to question them without being disrespectful was kind of the whole premise of what he was talking about. And he calls it basically a two-step process where you set them up and then you come in with a kill shot. That's the vernacular he uses. And in fact, kill shot is a phrase that's used quite often in a lot of ways to refer to kind of like the final nail in the coffin or straw that broke the camel's back or any other number of rhetorical mechanisms that you might use to describe a scenario where there's the final straw, the last thing that does them in, so to speak. And I've used kill shot plenty of times. I have had colleagues in academic circles use kill shot. It's pretty commonplace, or at least it has been in my life in the different circles I've run in. So that might be corporate America, or I owned restaurants, and so all these different worlds. I'm exposed to people who express things different ways, and it's not anything offensive whatsoever. It's very common to be like, yeah, so first I hit him with this question, and then I came in with the kill shot, boom, put him on the spot, asked him that. Like, it's very common language. So anyway, that has not stopped the corporate left-wing media from losing its mind, basically, and saying that Jesse Watters has threatened violence and death on Dr. Fauci because he refers to basically catching Fauci in public and ambushing him with this strategy, setting him up with a question and then coming in with the kill shot with another question. And the people in the corporate mainstream press has interpreted this as literal violence that Jesse Watters is pushing on Dr. Fauci. It is absolutely preposterous, people. I'm talking like this is next level, just absurdity. And I did a quick search on YouTube because I was trying to find the clip, and I would just type in Jesse Watters kill shot Fauci, and there are tons of videos popping up who are these left-wing, quote, journalists, people trying to be something approximating a journalist, saying this exact same thing, that, oh my God, Jesse Watters should be fired. He's advocating violence. And they clearly either don't have an elementary grasp on the English language, or they're being willfully ignorant, because this is a very common expression. And let's say you weren't aware of that fact. I did a quick search and searched for Jesse Watters kill shot. It's an expression he uses often. He's used it in the past in other situations and other scenarios. So even if you came into this not knowing the expression, if you did a little bit of digging, if you did a little bit of research, if you had an ounce of journalistic integrity, you would find that it's something that he often says. So Dr. Fauci was questioned about this. I can't remember what station it was on. I think it was either like NBC, ABC, CNN, one of them. Anyway, I'll show you guys a clip. But he was questioned about it, and he basically said that Jesse Watters should get fired for that. So and I don't know if Fauci maybe didn't see the actual clip, but I can tell you one thing: people are showing only a portion of it, starting right at the kill shot part, instead of showing the part leading up to it, where he very clearly states that this is a mechanism through which you question people, and I call it the two-step kill shot approach. And so it's just disingenuous, lack of ethics, lack of integrity on the part of these so-called journalists. They should all be ashamed. But again, they don't care. They don't really care about disseminating information. They just care about getting your clicks, getting your likes, getting the fires of controversy flaming and stoked and creating more divide. These aren't intelligent people. They aren't people with morals. And anyway, here's the clip of Jesse Watters at the Turning Point USA event talking about his method. You guys can be the judge. Roll it.
All right, let's just say Fauci comes to town. All right? Let's pretend this podium's Fauci. It's about the same size. You got to ambush a guy like Fauci, okay? This is how you do these ambushes, like O'Keefe. You got to be respectful, because they'll turn the tables on you and you can't have it blow up in your face. So if you see Fauci out and about and you know he's coming to town, this is how you approach, okay? First, you identify yourself. You say, what's your name? What's your name? Edward what? Thompson. What school? What? I don't even know what you just said. My name's Thompson. I'm from da-da-da-da-da. Address, do you mind, Dr. Fauci, if I ask you a few questions? He's going to say no, but you were polite. So if he says, no, not right now, you say, no, we're going to address this right now. That's how you turn the tables, and you start it with an aggressive posture. Then you hit him with the first question. The first question can't be a yes or no question, because his answer can just be yes or no. You have to elicit. It has to be a how or a why. So what you do with Anthony Fauci is you say, Dr. Fauci, why did you lie? Okay? Why did you lie? I love that question. Hit him with, why did you lie when you said that you didn't fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab? Now, Fauci, he did. He funded it. So he's either going to deny it. He can't deny it because he's going to lie again. Or he's just going to speak gibberish. You let him talk. Get it on tape with your iPhone or your buddy's iPhone. I don't have time to get into the technicality of it. But you let him talk, and here's your follow-up. Now, there's a little trick of the trade. Keep a little document in your pocket, all right? This is the grant that funded the research. It's in your pocket. Now, you can print it out. It's on the internet. You know what it is. Or if it's a blank sheet of paper, you hold the sheet of paper up for effect. You say, I have the grant right here, Dr. Fauci, and you wave it in his face. You wave that in his face for the camera, for flair. And then you read it to him, right? You say, you summarize. You say, it says right here, 2014, 800 grand. This is your agency. Why do you continue to lie, doctor? And you wave it. Now, that time, I mean, this guy's scrambling at this point. You have the goods. You have the goods. Because he's been able to dodge and weave on the ABC and NBC. No one's ever hit him in the face like this. Not even Rand Paul has been able to get in his face and point with the grant in his face. So then he's in trouble. Now you go in for the kill shot. The kill shot with an ambush, deadly. Because he doesn't see it coming. This is when you say, Dr. Fauci, you funded risky research at a sloppy Chinese lab. The same lab that sprung this pandemic on the world. You know why people don't trust you, don't you? Boom! He is dead! He is dead! He's done. Now, how you do that? 30 seconds. That's all you need. 30 seconds. Now, you get that footage to us. You get it to Foxx. You get it to Human Events. You get it to Breitbart. You get it to Daily Caller. You get it through the Turning Point pipeline. Imagine Tucker Carlson teases out of the A block, coming up.
And that was Jesse Watters talking about the kill shot approach to questioning someone if you encounter them as a journalist. And now I'm going to show you where Dr. Fauci was questioned, basically asking what he thought about it. And he's essentially saying that he thinks he should be fired. So here you go.
Well, John, that's horrible. I mean, that just is such a reflection of the craziness that goes on in society. The only thing that I have ever done throughout these 2 years is to encourage people to practice good public health practices, to get vaccinated, to be careful in public settings, to wear a mask. And for that, you have some guy out there saying that people should be giving me a kill shot to ambush me. I mean, what kind of craziness is there in society these days? That's awful that he said that. And he's going to go very likely unaccountable. I mean, whatever network he's on is not going to do anything for him. I mean, that's crazy. The guy should be fired on the spot.
So that was Dr. Fauci basically, as I said, calling for the termination of Jesse Watters for essentially expressing a rhetorical technique, a method of questioning people in public. So you have a government official calling for a member of the press to be fired over words, and over words that were not threatening. They were not actual violent words. And anybody with a semblance of a brain who could do a little bit of research would have known that and found that out. But I digress. That's not how most people apparently do things these days. So the other clip I want to show you guys really quick about this is Jesse Watters talking about kill shot like a month ago, over a month ago or so, in reference to something completely different, a different subject. But he uses that same phrase, kill shot. It's clearly an expression he uses often to define, again, kind of like that last straw, that one that's going to come in and do them in, knock them out. You know, the kill shot. It's a common expression. So anyway, here's that clip.
Business Insider was attempting to peel away Barstool advertisers. You're looking at the anatomy of a modern day media kill shot. Make no mistake, this is a kill shot aimed at Dave and Barstool Sports.
All right. So as you guys can see, Jesse clearly uses this expression often. People are up in arms, freaking out for no reason. But it's just, I had to talk about it because it's just this perfect illustration of how people take things, they manipulate clips, and they make something out of nothing. They're disingenuous, bad actors, again, trying to create division amongst us. You can't fall for it. And if you're an independent journalist out there, if you're someone on YouTube who has your own channel, who claims to be someone who cares about journalistic integrity or actually providing real news, and you're showing a part of this clip and saying that Jesse Watters is advocating for real violence, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should absolutely be ashamed of yourself. You have no morals. You have no ethics. And I'd like to think you're capable of doing a simple Google search and looking for previous videos where he's used this same expression so that you can actually check facts. And so, again, you should be ashamed of yourself for even pretending like he was trying to make a violent threat. And I'll give you guys just one example here. You can see it.
I'm going to talk about Jesse Watters. the Fox News host, who hopefully, after this week, does not have a job after the things he said, the threats that he made, the encouragement of radicals to ambush with kill shots Anthony Fauci. It is, if it was just some clown, and not a clown who is employed by the most watched cable news outlet in America, possibly the world, it would be a different story. But because he does have notoriety, he's a host on multiple shows. This is a problem. It's one thing to vilify Anthony Fauci, but to vocalize physical threats, even sideways ones, and these aren't even that sideways, it's a whole different thing. Watch this remarkable clip from Jesse Waters, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Now you're going for the kill shot. The kill shot with an ambush, deadly, because he doesn't see it coming. This is when you say, Dr. Fauci, you funded risky research at a sloppy Chinese lab, the same lab that sprung this pandemic on the world. You know why people don't trust you, don't you? Boom! He is dead. He is dead. He's done. Now, how you do that? 30 seconds. That's all you need. 30 seconds. Now, you get that footage to us. You get it to Fox. You get it to Human Events. You get it to Breitbart. You get it to Daily Caller. You get it through the Turning Point pipeline. Imagine Tucker Carlson teases out of the A block, coming up. Brave college student confronts Lord Fauci at dinner. Exclusive footage, right back. Get us that. That's what we want. That changes the whole conversation of the country. I've authorized it. Just make sure it's legal.
Ambush, kill shot, he's dead.
So as you can see, people are either willfully ignorant, they're not very bright, or they are choosing to create divisiveness on purpose and modify things to push a narrative, which you just saw with this individual. So, guys, it's disgusting, despicable behavior. Again, people should be ashamed of themselves. Look, I'm not a journalist. I'm just some dude who's capable of actually looking things up online and reading and trying to portray things as they actually happened. That's the whole point of free mind. But again, these are people with verified accounts with little check marks. And so people take them seriously. All you have to do is like scroll through the comments on that video that I just played for you guys. And there's tons of people just, oh my God, this is disgusting. This is terrible. Fire Jesse Waters. He's an awful person. There's no place for violent threats in our discourse and blah, 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 blah. Just on and on and on and on. Because what happens? People don't take the time to actually look things up. They're going to watch that small little clip, just like the clip of Donald Trump where he said, very fine people on both sides, where they exclude the part where he says, now I'm not talking about white supremacists and neo-Nazis. They should be condemned entirely. They leave that part out. And they say that all he said was there's fine people on both sides, when in fact he was referring to people who wanted to preserve the statue for historical purposes versus the people who wanted to tear it down. And he said there's these other people, these white supremacists, these neo-Nazis, they should be condemned. He said it explicitly, and the media decided to leave it out. And then it amplifies. You have a scenario where dum-dums like Joe Biden are actually stating that as though it's a fact in the primaries leading up to the presidency. So this is how you get these narratives that persist and don't go away. So again, terrible, just disgusting lack of ethics, man. I mean, it's reprehensible, right? Like showing this little clip of Jesse Waters very clearly talking about a specific thing, very clearly not referring to actual physical violence, but you don't care. You don't care. All you care about is pushing your propaganda, your narrative. You're not a journalist. You have no ethics. You should be ashamed of yourself. So moving on, as you guys probably know, Kamala Harris was recently interviewed by Charlemagne the God it wasn't Breakfast Club. It was, I think, one of Charlemagne's other shows. And props to Charlemagne, right? Like straight up asked her. And the funny part was, he asked her, who's president? Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin? And what is her name? Simone Sanders, who's actually on her way out. Kamala's, I think, press secretary. I'm not sure of her exact title. She tries to pretend like they can't hear him and that they've got a cut. And then, of course, Kamala is like, no, I can hear you. And so he asks the question again. Anyway, she basically claps back at him in the most like unlikable, it's just cringe-worthy. It's almost as though she's trying to be cringe-worthy or she's just incapable of seeming like a normal person. Like she is so unrelatable. It's actually impressive. So anyway, here is Charlemagne the God asking Kamala Harris who the real president of the country is. And here is her very weird, off-putting response. Roll.
I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry. I interrupted. I don't think the vice president can hear you. It's Simone. I'm so sorry, Charlemagne. We have to wrap.
She can hear me.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, Madam Vice President?
So I'm sorry. We got to wrap.
Oh.
So I'm sorry to interrupt.
They're acting like they can't hear me. Y'all see that?
I can hear you.
Oh, so who's the
I
real?
can hear you.
So who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden. And don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris.
So you can see that that probably is not going to go over well with the general public. Man, I don't know. Kamala is, she really boggles my mind because, like I said, it's almost like she is trying to do a terrible job. Every time she opens her mouth, she makes things worse. Anyway, I'd be curious to know what you guys' thoughts are about that. So hit me in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or if you're on Spotify or Apple, head on over to YouTube and make a comment. But yeah, again, props to Charlemagne. He's had some moments, man. He had that moment where he, of course, infamously had Joe Biden tell him that if he doesn't know who he's voting for, then he ain't black. Charlemagne has really been able to kind of squeeze stuff out of these people. And I think it's his irreverence. I think it's because he's not like one of these, like the guy that I showed you earlier who's twisting this Jesse Waters story because he's trying to be a journalist, and he's all about like Washington and the whole corrupt, swampy grossness. Charlemagne's not that. He's just a dude who acknowledges that these politicians say things and they need to deliver on their words, and he's going to question you about it. So Charlemagne the God doing the Lord's work and putting Kamala on the spot. All right, next thing. We're blowing through the news. It's so funny. I'm not even trying to like be the news, but I comment on current events. But the next thing is, you guys are all familiar with Jussie Smollett, Juicy Smollett, was found guilty on 5 different charges for staging and faking a hate crime against himself. So you guys may have heard the name Kim Foxx thrown around. She is the Cook County prosecutor who was involved with Jussie's case early on. And I think she I'm not intimately familiar with the details from early on, but I think that his charges were dropped and then they were brought against him again, something like that. Like she was involved in somehow getting his charges dropped or something. And you guys can fact check me. I'm not positive exactly how that transpired, but that's not the point of this conversation anyway. So apparently she was in touch with Jussie's sister when all of this was going down, when it happened, back in 2019, and was keeping her informed on kind of what was going on, telling her to make sure that he keeps his story consistent and all this stuff. Again, very similar to like what Don Lemon was doing when he was texting Jussie, telling him, hey, look, man, I got insider knowledge that the police over here in Chicago don't believe your story. So same deal. Like, you can't do that. And especially as the prosecutor, the Cook County prosecutor, she's giving tips and insider info to a sibling of the person who's being accused of a crime. I mean, just craziness. So that broke, just more crap unraveling with this Jussie Smollett stuff. So much corruption, just ridiculous amounts of corruption. And the last thing, my man, Louis C.K. Okay, so you guys may or may not be familiar with what happened with Louis. Basically, about 5 years ago or so, it came out that he is a bit of a creep, I guess you would say, someone who has kind of a unique sexual proclivity. He enjoys pleasuring himself in front of women, okay? Now, that's to each their own. Everyone has their sexual proclivities. And apparently, the reason people were pissed off about it is because Louis would ask women if he could do it in front of them. So he would ask permission. He would do, all the things that essentially you're supposed to do as per Me Too standards, right? Like ask permission to do said thing. And they would say yes, and he would do it. Now, here is apparently where the problem is that because he was in a position of power, right? A famous guy, well-known, and oftentimes the people he would do this in front of were not on the same level in the power dynamic. They apparently felt like they had to say yes. So even though he propositioned them, asked for permission, and they said yes, it's still something that pissed people off because they're essentially, I think, these women thought they had no choice. And Louis said as much. He was like, I realize now in hindsight that even though I did ask for permission, it wasn't fair because I am a large, powerful celebrity figure, and I'm sure they felt pressured to say yes. So it's a nuanced situation, all right? It's not like he was a Harvey Weinstein type character. He wasn't forcing himself on people. He was literally asking permission, and then he was never touching anyone. He was only touching himself in front of them, right? So, very unique scenario. But nonetheless, he felt the need to step away from the spotlight. He admitted to all of it. He came clean with his, whatever you would call it, his personal habit that's maybe not savory for a lot of people, but it's his thing, right? And look, I have said on here many times, I mean, I just had a gay Republican on the show. I do not care what you choose to do in your sex life. I don't care who you engage in sexual activities with, as long as it's not a child, period. And that's my stance on it. You do what you do in the privacy of your bedroom. So if your thing is masturbating in front of another person, as long as they've given you permission, I see nothing wrong with that at all. Honestly, I mean, it would be akin to, I don't know. I mean, in general, it's not a big deal, right? Like if it were any person and any other person, normal run-of-the-mill people, it would be fine, right? Like, hey, I have this thing. I really am into pleasuring myself in front of people. I just wanted to put it out there. If you are interested in watching me do that, I would like to do that in front of you. And then if they said yes, then you did it. That's fine. That's a normal exchange. The issue, of course, here was that Louis is powerful. So that was the whole problem. Now, again, far from some crazy Epstein or Weinstein type sexual harassment thing where he's forcing himself on people. He never touched another person. I've already said all that. So anyway, this happened 5 years ago. He really kind of removed himself from the spotlight for 5 years and basically was, for all intents and purposes, canceled. I mean, he lost, I think, something like $30 million because I don't know if it was because he was supposed to film a special and he didn't, or he canceled a tour or something like that. But he definitely got a good amount of backlash and was essentially canceled for the past 5 years. give or take. I mean, he's done some things here and there, but certainly not at the sort of meteoric level that he was at before. And now he's released a new special called Sorry, and people are up in arms about it. People are pissed off about it. And for me, I'm kind of like, what the heck, man? Like, people are calling him a predator, and they're essentially conflating what he did with these horrific things that, like, say, Joe Biden did, you know, where he put his hand on another woman, up her skirt or down her shirt or whatever it was, or, you know, Chris Cuomo grabbing another woman's butt, or, you know, Andrew Cuomo doing all these different things where he was touching people inappropriately. You know, in my opinion, what Louis did wasn't as bad as any of that. I mean, he never touched anybody, right? And he did ask permission. However, for whatever reason, people have decided that he's irredeemable. And I think that's a problem. Like, there has to be some way back. If you make a mistake, if you own up to it, if you apologize for it. And look, I think he apologized more than he even needed to be quite honest. Again, he checked all the boxes. He asked for permission. He never laid hands on anyone. You know, it was, quote, consensual. So really, he was just guilty of being a powerful figure, right? So 5 years later, people are still pissed that he wants to get back to making comedy. And I think that's ridiculous. I think that, and just like, so here's kind of an odd sort of hypocritical aspect to all of this. A lot of the folks who are pushing to keep Louis canceled are also proponents of criminal justice reform and want felons to have the right to vote, for example. And essentially the premise is you serve your time, you've done what you were supposed to do to serve your time to the state. Now you get back to a normal life. That's sort of the point of it, right? And at the same time, they're saying keep Louis canceled. He doesn't deserve to come back. And it's like, man, I think that's a bit harsh. It's not like the guy freaking actually raped anybody or actually put hands on anyone, sexually assaulted anyone, literally asked for permission. And so it's just crazy. And it just shows how deep this whole cancel culture sort of thing is, right? Like, I mean, people make mistakes and they own up to them and they want to come back. Let them come back, man. I mean, you have to have a system where there is some recourse, there's some way back, you know, sort of the same thing with permanently banning people off social media. I don't believe in that either. I mean, I don't believe in banning them, period. But if you're just going to ban them and never let them back, I mean, I think that that's it's essentially inhumane. That's not how we do things. Prison sentences even have an ending. Even if they're a life sentence, they still are for X number of years, and oftentimes they get shortened, etc. Like, we have to forgive people. You know, so I encourage you all to watch his special. I'm going to go buy it. I think it's only available on his website. He's a hilarious comedian. He's one of the best in the game. And if nothing else, you can appreciate someone's art without having to bring their personal life into it. And at the end of the day, the guy's really only guilty of having kind of a creepy proclivity to enjoying people watching him masturbate. And he just so happens to be a guy with some clout. And so it became a difference in power dynamic. Again, if it were any normal person, if it were me, and I asked a woman, hey, can I masturbate in front of you? And she said no. Okay, sorry, you know, just thought I'd ask. And if she said yes, and I masturbated in front of her, nobody would have any issues with that. But the point is, he's a celebrity, and so it made it automatically bad. And again, I think already the punishment has been more than the crime, quote unquote crime. There actually wasn't any crime. But anyway, guys, it's just something I wanted to mention because I think it is something we need to think about and talk about. And no matter what side you're on, even if you're a crazy proponent of anarchy or anarcho-communism and say you get banned off of a platform, I think you should be able to come back after a certain amount of time too. Like, even if your beliefs are diametrically opposed to mine, I think everyone should be able to have a path back. All right. We can't just cast people aside only to waste away and never return unless they're pedophiles or rapists or murderers. Okay. There's a few types of people who I do think are irredeemable. but it's certainly not a comedian who jacks off in front of someone who gave him permission to jack off in front of them. Gross, yeah, it's not my thing. I think it's pretty creepy, pretty nasty, pretty gross, whatever. It makes me go, ugh. But I think he should be able to practice his art and put it out there. And look, man, we're missing out on a pretty awesome comic if we don't give him a chance to put some material out, So anyway, with that said, we talked about Jesse Waters getting attacked unnecessarily for basically speech that had nothing to do with actual violence, and Dr. Fauci saying he should be fired. We talked about Kamala getting asked who the real president is on Charlemagne and basically losing her crap. We talked about Kim Foxx and Jussie Smollett and how she was passing info to Jussie's sister and very unethical as the prosecutor of Cook County. And then finally, we talked about Louis C.K. and joiking off in front of other people and getting canceled and coming back. So I hope that this made you think a little bit. I hope that you got something out of it of value. And if you did, please, guys, please, all I ask is you recommend it to someone, you share it somewhere, you give me a rating and review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, rather. You subscribe to the YouTube, comment, like, all the little things that don't cost you anything but mean the world to me. I just ask you to please consider it because it makes a world of difference for me in trying to grow this thing. And look, I don't make anything off of this. In fact, it costs me money, but I love doing it and I love providing you guys with this. So all I ask again is if you get any value out of it, just try to support me on whatever platform it is, like it, comment, share it, rate it, whatever. And yeah, that's all I ask, my friends. And with that, until next time, keep your minds free.